Saturday.
I found someone wonderful, and there will be no one that comes between me and my Allison. We can be together forever.
Till death do us part.
A Predator Returns premieres Saturday at 8, only on Lifetime.
I'm excited to have back on the show rising star actor Houston Stevenson, and he's here today to talk about his exciting starring role in A Predator Returns, his next projects, and how he stays fit, which is his passion for fitness. Welcome back, Houston.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so congratulations on your starring role, and you play the character of Bruce, correct?
Yes.
And it's a thriller. Sharks.
It is a thriller, arguably almost on the verge of horror. There's a lot of the intensity from this film compared to the last film with Bruce. The psycho killer definitely becomes a lot more extreme in the amount of murder that takes place. There's a lot more shenanigans when it comes to the intensity of how he deals with his stress in the one coming out. So yeah, definitely a thriller for sure.
And this is the third installment. It's like Bruce keeps getting killed off, right? He keeps coming back. Is that right?
Kind of like a Jason. He keeps coming back. The first one that came out in like 2017 was really successful on Lifetime. It had like one of the most reruns that Lifetime had put out. And so 3 years later, they essentially decided to make a remake of that movie because, 3 years in the TV world is not like 3 years in the movie world where they can just basically remake the movie. So it was almost as if, there's a new Batman or there's a new James Bond, or they put me into the place of Bruce, which gave me a lot of pressure because I had to kind of put myself in those shoes and, do if not as good or a better performance as the previous Bruce. But he doesn't, you think he dies in the first one, he doesn't, and that's where I pop in the second, which is basically like a remake of the first. Lifetime actually called it A Predator's Obsession instead of Stalker's Prey 2, and then instead of Stalker's Prey 3, it's A Predator Returns, where I am not dead, surprisingly. Surprise, surprise.
I watched the trailer, and there's a scene where you're on the ledge, like you're holding onto a ledge. How did you prepare for that role? Like, was it a stunt, or like, it looked scary what you were doing?
It was ice, probably, we're Canadian here. So for us to complain about the cold anywhere else than Canada, it must be pretty cold. This was in, I would say 3 weeks before Halloween over in Connecticut on the ocean at nighttime up at this, 100-foot lighthouse, and the wind is gusting. And essentially, I don't want to spoil the film, but I end up getting in this fight sequence and I end up flipping over the bar and holding on to the handles. And I was actually hanging on the real bar in real life, but I had a harness, which they green screened the cables out of. And I just remember there was no prep because everybody in the crew was I just remember I was thinking, this is strange. Everybody's wearing like ski jackets and everybody's like and I'm wearing this, tuxedo, which is really thin silk pants and a jacket. Like there was no padding. So I'm holding onto this bar. It's kind of like, when you go skiing and you hold on to the ski lift, how cold that bar is. Well, my hands were on that, and we did that take probably in 40 minutes, which seems like a short while, but the prep before it was like an hour of rehearsal, but hanging there with my hands were like white and frozen, and the wind was gusting, and it was extremely, extremely cold. It was nighttime on top of the Atlantic Ocean in Connecticut and near the fall, and it was cold.
Yeah, it's like in Hunter's Cove, right? That's where it was filmed. Like, it's not a place called Hunter's Cove. It's a made up, right?
Yeah, I think Hunter's Cove is part of the story. Like, I think it is meant to be in that world of Connecticut and New Hampshire and Boston kind of, area. But Hunter's Cove was all kind of put into the script as like a name. Where we were in East Lyme, Connecticut. And I think we shot a little bit in New Haven, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, it was just so beautiful out there, especially if you like that classic old school America kind of East Coast feel. All the neighborhoods out there is just stunning. And it was a real privilege to be able to be out there.
Yes, and it was filmed during the pandemic, and there was a small crew, right? So what was that like working, during the pandemic, but also working in a small crew? Is that correct, Houston?
That is correct. So I suppose COVID had just started. It was only like 5 months into COVID that I found out that we were going to be shooting the next one. And that meant that this was going to be the first project I've ever done under a COVID regulation. The craziest part about it is that we were the only film in North America on the East Coast to be shooting. So there were other films going on in Los Angeles and in Vancouver, primarily commercials, but this was in a time when it was just, 5 months after COVID had started. There was a really strict lockdown. So like people weren't at their jobs. Everybody was being quarantined to their houses. The fact that we were able to shoot is because we had such a small crew, which meant that the regulations were extremely heightened. We had news crews like filming us saying, hey, these guys are the only crew in the whole East Coast of the United States to be shooting. So that meant that, I couldn't leave my hotel room to go get a snack. And, because that meant if I got COVID, the whole thing would be shut down for 2 weeks. And that would be just really, really hard on the production. So as much as it was intense to have to deal with those regulations, it was just such a blessing because everybody in the crew, even if it was reduced down to half and, people in the camera department had to, take on 2 different jobs, lighting guys would have to take on 2 different jobs. And it meant that hours were longer. We were doing like up to 16-hour work days. But everyone was so excited to be there because everyone had been stuck in their houses and no one else was working. So the fact that, as an actor, I could say, hey, well, everybody's stuck at home and I can go fly across the country to go shoot a movie was just such a blessing for me. So it was pretty cool.
Yes, and we talked last that you have, you love sharks, like, and then the film has sharks, like it's what was that like, playing the character as Bruce, but also the film being about sharks?
It was like a golden opportunity in the sense that I 5 years before the movie, I have always had a fascination with sharks, and in the sense that I have a scuba diving license and I've dove with many different types of sharks: reef sharks, lemon sharks, tiger sharks, around the world. Fortunately, with my dad, who's a diver, scuba diver. And when I was younger, I came across this documentary called Shark Water with this guy who sadly passed away, who produced it and created the film and leads in it, named Rod Stewart, who basically was one of the first guys to come out there and show how about 100 million sharks are dying every year because they're being illegally finned for their fins across the Pacific and the Atlantic. Hundreds of miles of long net, which are just barbed and hooked wires, are catching not only sharks, but dolphins and turtles and tuna. And primarily, it just affected me so much because, from diving with these sharks, I realized that they weren't scary. First of all, from my earlier experience of diving with them, it wasn't like, Jaws, that scary. People seem to look at a movie and they see a scary shark, and a seal is just as vicious as a shark is underwater, eats just as many fish, but it's cute and cuddly, so people want to save a seal. I felt very affected about the fact that, they're in such a grotesque and brutal, inhumane fashion. They're taking these sharks while they're still alive, cutting the fins off of them, chucking them back in the water so they sink down. And not only is that horribly destructive to the environment because they're a tertiary consumer. They're at the top of the food chain, which in turn destroys our oxygen levels because the phytoplankton, which are the biggest carbon sinks in the world, get affected. Carbon sinks meaning trees are carbon sinks, they produce oxygen, and half of our oxygen that we get actually comes from the oceans, which is 70% of the planet. Without the sharks, that affects the oxygen. So I always had this fascination with wanting people to realize that sharks, 5 people die every year from sharks. Elephants kill more sharks than people do, or that elephants kill more people than sharks do. And vending machines swallow more people than sharks kill. I always felt really upset about that. So when I saw the script, I was a little weary because I wasn't sure if it was like a movie that was going to give sharks a bad name. And I didn't realize that Bruce is like a metaphor for the shark. It's not really about how, like, sure, yeah, the sharks are scary in the film and they nip at you, but it's not based on the shark being the bad guy. It's me as the bad guy. And I had never taken on a role as a villain before. So I connected with the character in the sense that I had a big passion for sharks and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I easily get heartbroken in real life, and he easily gets heartbroken in the series of the film. So I had a pretty close connection with him.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I mean, it must have been exciting, working on something that you feel passionate about. And tell us about your fitness. I know you are a big time hiker. You meditate, scuba dive now. Tell us about how much do you work out, like hiking?
I try to hike as much as possible. I just feel that hiking not only is a double win in the sense that it's not only tremendously great for your cardio, you're getting fresh air, it's good for your whole body, you're moving, but in a spiritual sense, without even needing to meditate, it's like 2 in 1. If you're alone and you're walking in the woods and you just release your stress and you get a workout and you're breathing in fresh oxygen, I find it's a really good place to, wherever you are, even if you're in Runyon Canyon down in LA, or you're in the Grand Canyon out in the desert, or you're going through a snowstorm and you're climbing a mountain. I just feel that being in nature and hiking is a great way to stay into shape, but also a great way to just stay in tune and balance yourself. If anything, I don't want to get too deep into that world, but to be able to manifest in a proper way, I think it's very therapeutic, if you will. So I try to, before I have an audition or something, go on a hike and just clear my mind of any negativity or any doubts that I have, and just project just positive energy while I'm hiking. And I think being in the forest and having fresh oxygen just gives me that ability to put myself in a really positive and confident mindset.
Yeah, fitness is a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's wonderful. And can you share any meditation tips?
I am only just beginning to learn how to meditate. I've done it for a while, but not in the way that one would recommend to do it. I usually just listen. As I said, my meditation is like I'm not the type of person to like sit in my house and do that thing. I will, time to time, when I'm up in the forest, I'll put on a binaural beat, which is just beautiful frequencies in my headphones, and I'll just focus on my breathing. I think that's really important, to just release all of your thoughts in your life, let go, focus on your breathing. And I just feel that when you're in nature, so when I'm hiking, for example, and I find that right point, I've been, hiking up the mountain for about an hour. If there's a viewpoint and, there's nobody around, I usually don't like to hike where there's like lots of tourists and people yelling and stuff. That's where you can just kind of namaste and
Yes.
sit there and listen to nature and breathe. I find that to be very healing.
Yes. Do you have any favorite hiking places in Canada, the US?
Yes, I do. So I enjoy a trail called the Baden-Powell Trail, which is very big, and there are many different subsections of how to get onto it. You can start with a beautiful hike, which sadly today is really packed and touristy. I remember like 3 years ago, it used to be a dead zone, but now it's like pretty much packed. But there's the White Lake Trail, which is up by Caulfield up in West Vancouver, and it leads into the Baden-Powell, which is on the back of Cypress Mountain. And I remember hiking it, not even knowing it went to Cypress Mountain. And I'm the kind of guy that just wants to hike till I hit the top. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a ski resort there, and it's summertime. That's crazy. So I ended up taking a taxi down from the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my favorite. Baden
That's,
Powell Trail.
it's wonderful. And so what is next for you, Houston?
Right now, as per COVID, everything was quite slow in terms of like all the auditions are just kind of starting now and the TV's starting up now. So in terms of acting in another project, it's just me out there like every other actor fighting the good fight. I usually have a good track record of like a couple movies a year that I've done. So we'll see what's up to come in 3 days or on Saturday. So in 2 days, we have A Predator Returns coming out on Lifetime. Which is very exciting. A lot of people, I didn't realize how big the film was going to be on the last one. A lot of people were reaching out to me and tuning in, and that was really a special experience for me. So I'm excited about that, so I can, reach out with people again and see what they thought about the film. And currently, I am writing and producing. So I've raised a lot of money, and I've been focusing on the stock market to produce my own movie about Robert Pickton, but not in a horror style, more of a political piece style about how the victims' voices weren't heard and how it was a time where, people didn't care as much. But that's a whole different story. I'll get back to you on that one day, but I'm still writing it, so I want to perfect it before I talk about it.
That's exciting, and congratulations. And so it's going to be A Predator Returns on Lifetime May 22nd and on video on demand.
May 22nd, video on demand. So I believe they're playing the one I did before that an hour before, and then they're going to play A Predator Returns. I think at 5 o'clock and then 8 o'clock on the East Coast. So around the same time. And then they're just going to keep playing. They usually play that for like a month throughout through the schedule. And if it does well, they play it throughout the year. The Predator's Obsession, the one I did before this, ended up doing well. So they kept playing it, which was nice. And then it goes off to Apple TV and Amazon and Google Play, I believe, which is exciting. So you can rent it there, or you can find it illegally, which I recommend you do not do.
Yeah, well, you in Pharm too, you played Brandon, right? That's a horror movie that we talked about last time. So that's great.
That will be, that's already on video on demand. I had a friend, I think like a week ago, he was going through Walmart and he saw it on the DVD list. So I've never seen that, but I've always thought it would be kind of spooky to like walk by your own DVD. But that made me really proud, because I was pretty sure Pharm was like the most low budget movie in the world. We had no trailers. It was all in the chicken coops and on the, in the corn mazes. It was very indie style, but it ended up turning out to be quite the fun movie. And that ended up surprisingly, but not surprisingly, because it, not because of the budget, not because of the budget, but the film with the acting and just the way it was edited turned out being well done. So that's on Amazon and Apple and Google Play as well.
Wow. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Houston?
Well, in terms of meditation, which I'm glad you talked about, I am currently at my house on Salt Spring Island, which is this very small little island in between Vancouver Island and Vancouver, British Columbia. And I suggest to actors that hiking is key, and taking time to yourself is key, and staying in a positive mindset is key, especially in this industry. You want to push yourself to be the best person you can be, because it's so competitive. So in doing so, focusing on your health and your spirituality is up there. And I would say it's number 2 next to number 1, which is study. Know your craft. And that would be what I would add.
Wow, thank you. And I want to wish you all the best. And it was a pleasure interviewing you again, Houston. And I'd like to do another one in 6 months.
Yes, let's do it. We'll see. Hopefully the next film I do will not be the villain anymore, because I've done enough horror and thriller films. Maybe it will be a romance, and I'll find my next future wife. We'll see. Maybe I'll find my new wife on set of some movie. That's my goal. We'll see.
You never know. Visualize it, right? Would you like to be in a Hallmark movie?
Well, I think since I spoke to you, I actually had done a new movie. I don't know if we brought it up, but it was with Jesse Metcalf from John Tucker Must Die, and he's done a bunch of stuff. But that was called Martha's Vineyard, and that has still been rerunning and playing today. I shot that probably about a year ago now, and it's still running on Hallmark. I guess there's a lot of reruns now because of COVID. They ran out of stuff, which was really good for me as an actor because, you know, it meant that a lot of your movies are getting played and played over again, which gets you out there. So that's good. Martha's Vineyard, if you haven't seen that, murder mystery. Hey, there you go. Another murder film. I need to get out of that track record.
Yeah. Thank you again, Houston.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And go hiking and keep up what you're doing. So, yeah.
I appreciate it. Namaste.
Yes. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye for now.